thank you, Sherwin.
Thank you. Why don't we have Jeremy speak? Mr. Thacker, are you online?
I am.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes. Good morning. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. 1,038 days, 25 public meetings, 3 citizen petitions, 1,500 emails, 1,000 plus hours, and tens of thousands in legal. That's the investment that I've made for the opportunity for the first time today to potentially have a two-way conversation with the council. As stated earlier, city staff believes that the amount of time, energy, and resources I've invested using the current adequate methods of interacting with the council is reasonable. I, on the other hand, tend to believe it's had been excessive, especially considering the fact that I'm still not addressing the full council. I'm still not discussing the subject matter that is important to me, and I'm still not guaranteed a two-way conversation. So the current process, and while I appreciate that this is trying to be made about putting something on the agenda, which that's the formal process. This is really about communication and that process of public comment. So prior to Mayor Gallego taking office, public comments took place at the beginning of the city council meetings. City council approved the suggestion to move the comments to the end of the meetings. And what I'd like to look at are some of the facts associated with that and the effects of that. So the average formal city council meeting lasts 2 hours, while some of those meetings can be up to 5. So prior to these changes by Mayor Gallego, a citizen would spend, in a best case scenario, 10 minutes to make a public comment of their time, in total. Worst case scenario, maybe 30 minutes. After these changes, the best case scenario now is that for a citizen to address the council, they've got to invest 2 hours of their time, as I have this morning. Worst case scenario, 5 hours. Both the best and worst case scenarios require 10 times the amount of time for citizens than before the change. And that's only half of the story, literally half. The current process doesn't allow the council to communicate with citizens regarding public comment. In the rare circumstance where council members request the citizen's issue be placed on a future agenda, the citizen is now obligated to another 2 to 5 hour investment of their time. So as it stands, a citizen in a best case scenario today is required to allocate 4 to 10 hours of their time if they expect to have a conversation with the city council that lasts 5 minutes. So what's the solution? It is a solution. Allow the possibility of city council interaction with the citizen at the time of comment by simply adding to the agenda the public comment request submitted 72 hours in advance and containing the proper amount of detail to meet the OML requirement. So the city has stated that a couple of negative impacts that I want to address. That this would delay and disrupt the regular conduct of city business without offering a single example of how or why it would. They just stated again that, this is about business. Citizen comments are already on the agenda. This isn't new. This is just making it more effective. The other place they say is prior to placing an item on the agenda, staff must follow administrative regulations to ensure agenda items are properly formatted and vetted. Here is what the requirements in the ARS say about in the open meeting law. Agendas must be available at least 24 hours before the meeting. Agendas must contain information reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. What? Is this the formatting and vetting that will cause delay and disruption, leading to pandemonium and chaos throughout the city, thus justifying the additional 2 to 5 hours of each citizen's time that decides to make a public comment? Or is this might be better described as a task that could be almost completely automated and require a few minutes of an intern or admin's time per meeting while not wasting hours and hours of citizen time. So the other effect I want you to think about is that the changes have been made to the public comment. The average number of comments as prior to Mayor Gallego making these changes was 9 public comments per meeting. The last 6 months of formal meetings have had an average of 2. has a chilling effect. They've been reduced by almost 75% of the total. So I believe that the actions of this council speak much louder than the words of the politicians. Today's actions will speak volumes about the commitment to citizen engagement by each of you.
Thank you. So just as a follow-up question, what you're suggesting is that if someone puts it in writing 72 hours prior to the agenda, then we perhaps can have that conversation with a public member. Could you use an example for me, Jeremy?
Sure. So if I were to submit, right now the process is that I have to go to the city council page for meetings, and I sign up to speak. I enter my information in there the same way. Instead of, now you just add a subject field. It allows me to say that I'd like to speak about shutting down the city's municipal golf courses due to water usage, cost, and inequity. And then the city manager and city clerk would approve to put that, they would put that on the agenda. I'm not putting that item on the agenda. I'm just suggesting the item be put on the agenda. And it would still go through the same process that it has been. But now, during the citizen comment, when I make my comment, now the city council at least has the ability to ask me questions about it. We could have a back and forth discussion because it's been put on the agenda. It doesn't require anyone to ask questions. It doesn't require, and it doesn't enable further comment. It simply allows for a discussion instead of prohibiting it and forcing citizens to waste hours and hours of time potentially to go to another meeting.